Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dwayne. Happy to be with you today. Thanks for likes and subscribes. They really actually do help the channel out quite a bit and help us grow and spread the message of good cybersecurity out there into the world. This week, we have a really awesome guest. I'm super excited to have him on the show. Johnny Christmas is a prominent figure in the information security community since about 2002. He spent a lot of time being a dedicated contributor to public forums, sharing his extensive research and knowledge. And most notably, he's recognized for being a showrunner of the BurbSec Infosec Meetup Network, which is where I know him from. He's also played a pivotal role in exposing the American TSA Master Key leaks a few years ago, uncovering the Venmo stalking vulnerabilities, and being an overall nuisance in the community. Currently, he is the global head of offensive security for a Fortune 200 food manufacturing company, but before that, he had spent many years in the field as a penetration tester, security engineer for a global Fortune 500 corporation, and a mainframe auditor and systems engineer for several IT asset recovery firms. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. How the hell do I do all of that?
No, I don't know how you sleep, man.
That is
You
insanity.
and you have a 3D printer behind you. You do a lot of stuff. So we want to narrow the scope down a little bit because, well, otherwise we'd be here for 3 or 4 episodes worth of show, and we want to respect everyone's time. So let's focus in on the way I know you and your community involvement with BurbSec, where you are a fearless leader, making sure that BurbSec happens and continues to grow out there. So for those people that are listening, are like, "What the heck's BurbSec?" Can you give us an intro?
Gosh, I wouldn't call me the fearless leader. I'm constantly terrified. Uh, BurbSec is an information security, I'm going to say, enthusiast network of meetups. There's one happening every Thursday somewhere in the world, most of them in Chicagoland. The I assume your listeners are right now asking themselves, like, why do we need another infosec meetup in the face of the DEF CON groups, the ISSA meetups, the OWASP meetups, the perhaps the ones who started it all, the 2600 meetups. And I've got an answer I think is great. As someone who has attended all of those, as someone who has helped run most of those, what I found was missing was the real opportunity for proper networking. All of these other meetups did not focus on networking. They used networking as it was kind of an after effect or side piece or a little sliver of time you would get to go do that. My favorite example has always been the OWASP meetups where they go, okay, we've got 45 minutes of networking. Then you're going to go into this room and you're going to sit down and you're going to shut up and you're going to listen to this other guy talk for an hour. And then you're going to go home because we only have the venue for X amount of time. And some other folks' OWASP meetups may be better than that. But the OWASP meetups, they're beneficial. I've learned a lot from them. I've made a lot of friends from there. However, what I was always upset about was the fact that you only get that like sliver, that 45 minutes of networking, and then they tell you, sit down, shut up, go home. I'm not a guy who knows how to sit down or shut up or go home. Uh, so that really wasn't clicking with me or my lifestyle. And uh, I had been kind of desperate for something else. In the meantime, this group called ShySec, spelled CHISEC, had been coming up in Chicago. It was hosted by some old Mandian folks. And it got really big. They were getting 70 plus people a month. And their entire thing was it started as a bunch of Mandian folks going out and hanging out and having some beers after work and invite your friends. And that turned into a full blown InfoSec meetup of hanging out and having beers. Long story short, a bunch of folks said, hey, this goes too late. I live way out in the suburbs. Um, I am at odds with having to come here and stay till 8 and then wander my way home or miss the train or whatever. And so what they did is they started their own out in the suburbs and called it BurbSec, which is where that name comes from. Crazy, right? And we moved it out to a major suburb that had a lot of corporate headquarters in it. It got really big, really popular. Tons of folks came up, and it was carrying on that same mentality of really there's only. Originally, we said there's two rules, and it was have a beer and complain about work. We decided to to refine those to say you don't necessarily have to have a beer, and and you don't necessarily have to complain. So the one rule of BurbSec is to show up. The second rule uh, is to make friends, but we don't hold everyone to that on the first meeting. And so anyway, everybody started coming to that. It got really big, and then people started saying, "Hey, it really sucks for me to come all the way up to this suburb because I live all the way down an hour away in that suburb." And so we said, "Well, go start your own." And so they made their own and they called it BurbSec West because it was in the west suburbs. And then a bunch of people said, "I can't get to the first one or the second one because I live in this third suburb." I think you see where the story is going. So anyway, we've got, how many do we got? Seven. We've got Prime, North, South, East, West, Northwest, Galway, Ireland. And I have a call on Wednesday to start working on kicking off BurbSec Austin, Texas. And so I already lost count. However many that is what we're looking at right now. Um, this is I'm dropping that that Austin's an O day. Nobody's heard about it yet. You're the first one. So
Right on. Well, hopefully it's up and
yeah,
running by the time this actually airs, because everybody knows we record these ahead of time. So we'll cross our fingers for that. I heard
yeah.
rumor of Vegas. Is that real or is
Oh,
that
there you
just
go.
a
Yeah,
talk?
shit. You're right. There you go. You caught me on that. There's a Vegas as well. That's been off to a rocky start, mainly because it's a good story. The guy who started it, he used to go to BurbSec North out here. He moved to Vegas, and years later said, "Man, do you know what I really, really, really miss was BurbSec." And he's like, "We got our other meetups here. We got our DC or our DEF CON groups out here, but it's not. They're not like BurbSec. They all got their own agendas, which is great." Um, but I said, "Hey, man, start your own." And he did. And at the time, he had just lost his job. And he's like, "I got a lot of free time. I'd love to get this networking rolling." And so he started it, and it was great. And then within a few months, he had gotten a job. Fantastic. And you know what starting a new job was like? He was instantly overwhelmed. And he didn't have time to get it well established enough to where it was autonomous. That's a big part of our thing is these meetups have to be autonomous. You have to get to the point where the person, the originator, can get hit by a bus and absolutely nothing is going to change. The meetups will still be happening, and that's a big. Uh, uh, that's probably the number one part of our framework is that, and the way we do that is by making sure the meetups are in the same place every month, and the same day every month at the same time, and so everybody can put it in their calendars. You can mark it as a recurring event. You can not show up for 3 years, and you're likely still going to be able to know exactly where it is 3 years later. And that makes it really easy on people. It makes it really easy to start uh, to really build up that internal audience and build up that autonomy. Get your all of your regulars rolling in because they're all going to be from the neighborhood, which is the whole purpose of this. If you move your meetups to different locations every month or every quarter, you're going to constantly be losing people because some people are going to be able to come, others won't, depending on that location. And that's what I also see hurting a lot of the other meetups out there is that constant bouncing around, that constant shifting of dates. You need stability to build up that base framework, and that has been huge for us. I mean, even in Vegas, they were able to get up to a decent number of people in just a few months because everybody knew where it was going to be. But we're working right now on getting some folks to help run that together to give it some more stability. But it is absolutely early stages there, which is also why it didn't come top of my mind. And I got to send my apologies to the Vegas crew. I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for that.
Uh, and we haven't even talked about, I think, for me at least, it feels like the linchpin, like that holds everything together behind the scenes, is the Discord. I've had
Yeah.
a lot of conversations with people at BurbSec. I go to East, BurbSec
Mhm.
East, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'll just drop it in Discord," or "Hey, can you throw that in Discord for me?" And it's the that underpinning of like we know we have a communication channel outside of just that one night we see each other in a month. So who started that?
Yeah, that's its own kind of longer story than you think. Um, to say, the short answer of who started the Discord, it was me. I stood up the Discord, but who cares? The This all started way back before. way back when there was only one BurbSec meetup out in Schaumburg, Illinois, and somebody, I know who it was. It was Ben 10, old Ben 10. I hope he's listening. We haven't seen him in a long, long time. He moved far away. Ben 10 spun up an IRC channel. And of course, this was 2012 or so, kind of post IRC, really. Like this was already when IRC was not something that, at least in America, or at least as far as social media goes, was being used anymore. But it was a super nerdy, hackery thing to use IRC. And so Ben stood up an IRC channel, and a ton of us got on board. We are like, hell yeah, IRC. And that was, man, I lost so many work hours to that IRC channel. And it was just one channel. And I would say there's maybe 15, 20 of us in there. Eventually Slack came around, and begrudgingly, oh no, I know what happened. The big South Korean corporate takeover of FNet, I believe it was. There was one of the IRC networks that like had a corporate takeover, and one of the things they did is they like, I believe they revoked all of the operator status for all the channels or something. I am totally misquoting what happened here. But the end result was that they kind of reset FNet back to zero. And they like reset all the security controls on everybody's channels and stuff. And everybody was like, well, I'm not going to bother setting all this up again and complying with the weird rules that they're putting out. I think they deleted everyone's accounts. It was insanity. And so everyone was like, never mind. This was already just a joke, and now it's become work. So we all left. And right around then, Slack was cropping up. And so we moved over to Slack, and Slack was just colorful IRC, right? It was real easy to start your own entire IRC server, quote, IRC server, it's a Slack server. And that was a lot more accessible. You didn't need to figure out how to use IRC to log on. Not that IRC was particularly complicated, but for people who weren't as nerdy as some, Slack really opened the door to allowing more people to enjoy this environment of real-time communication that was kind of hyper local, which is a big part of it. It wasn't like Facebook or Twitter where you are inadvertently discussing things with people globally. People you've never heard of come in and say terrible things to you about stuff that they have no knowledge of. This was something we could keep hyper local. And then during the pandemic, Discord had a lot of money injected into it, and they started adding a lot of features, and people started migrating over to Discord in droves. The role-based access control, the RBAC inside of Discord, became really desirable, and it was a big step towards being enterprise ready. But I think they've got a long ways to go. I think that's not their goal either. But either way, more and more people started moving over to Discord, including myself. And I'll admit it was begrudgingly. I was not into Discord when everybody else was either. A lot of people talked a lot of shit about the move to Discord. It was like, me too, buddy. But I finally stood up a Discord because I can't remember why. It was early pandemic. It was like 2020. And I do remember, oh, you know what it was? My work needed one we were doing quarterly quarterly webinar conference things, and they wanted a Discord where everybody could talk publicly. And so I said, all right, I'll set it up. And I went to quote, I think they call it Discord University or something, which is just their site on how to manage a Discord server. And I spent a weekend reading it all and setting up a Discord server with all of the security controls, every last quality of life thing. Like I went ham on being a Discord admin, and came out of it really knowing how. And I was like, this is a really, really, really cool setup that is so much better than Slack for the things I needed. And so I set one up for BurbSec, and I was like, hey, for you guys who hate Slack, you can use the Discord. And then I set up a bridge between the two so that all the messages were shared through this bridge. So no matter which platform you used, you were not missing anything. You could use your preferred platform and you were not being ostracized. Eventually, like all but like 3 users had moved over to Discord because of all the added benefits that it had. And I want to say 3 months ago, shut the Slack down. And it was a sad day to shut that down, because that Slack had gone from like 2014 through 2025, like 11 years of that Slack. And I talked to a lot of cool people in there. And it's not like they're gone. They all moved to the Discord. It was just like
Yeah, yeah,
turning the lights off on that Slack. I was like, wow. So then, yeah, that's where the Discord came from. And the Discord has become this jumping off point for a lot of people. One of my biggest frustrations that people see me like yelling about inside the Discord is, what more can I do to make people know when and where the meetups are, the in-person stuff? Because so many people come into the Discord and they're like, "Oh, you guys do in-person meetups too?" And I'm like, "Dog, that's that's our whole thing."
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, "What?" And I mean, that's just really, it's a testament to how effective the Discord has been. And the Discord is not just more BurbSec. It's not just show up and complain about work and have a beer. It's I've had to create so many channels that are related to the common interests that people have, like camping and health and their pets, just to get a lot of that chatter out of the main channels and go, look, if you guys are going to talk about this all the time, here, go make you your own channel. And then everybody loves having those channels and they make so many friends. And it's so cool to watch them like plan camping trips with people that they met on the Discord through a love of information security. It's bonkers to me that we've really built like what can legitimately be defined as a community, not just a bunch of people with a single shared interest. And like you said, that Discord helps to facilitate a lot of communication and a lot of interaction beyond BurbSec. Um, and so I think that's really what's helped stand it up. Like Discord is absolutely another BurbSec meetup. I should give it a name.
yeah.
BurbSec
Or
cyberspace.
online, something like that. Yeah. Uh, so what's been the biggest surprise for you out of all of your experience with this? What's like the thing that stood out? Was like, I didn't expect that to happen.
The whole thing. The whole, like, you know what, I didn't expect information security to blow up like it did. And I I didn't expect more people to still be coming out of the woodwork as that like basement obsessive nerd and looking for and finding their brethren. I expected, a lot of us who first got into information security, how did we do it? We were the basement nerds. We were the absolute obsessive people who were never off of their computer. We were the people who were hacking together piece of crap computers because we couldn't afford anything as young as we can remember, learning everything about everything. And that's how we got into InfoSec was, well, you had to kind of know a little bit about a lot of things. And that was us. We were the only ones who were like that. And so I was assuming as schools came around and you had more formal paths to education and more formal ways of learning this, and especially as information security became everybody's job, which is, I mean, has always been the case. But as the whole reason most corporations stood up information security teams, I'm talking 2011, 2012, 2013, was like after the Target breach, after the Home Depot breach, they said, oh my God, our IT teams are not equipped to handle securing this place. We need a dedicated team whose job that is. And so they brought in InfoSec people. And my assumption was always that once everybody got back up to speed, once the new blood came in and had learned the proper secure way of doing whatever their IT job was, we would start to see the security teams taper off. And I think we have seen that a little bit. But I also did not expect people to still be the basement nerds. I did not like, especially as just computers became ubiquitous and using computers became cool and video games became cool. Do you remember when you'd get beat up for playing video games? Like now, like you get beat up if you don't have the newest console. It's bananas to me. But but what's was so surprising is, like I said, the people who have spent their lives kind of being, um, we used to say socially awkward and introverted. And I think both of those things are inappropriate and perhaps not true. I think that we spent our lives just being really into something that we couldn't really find anyone else who was into. And so, of course, we're going to spend our time doing the things that we like. And that doesn't mean we're socially awkward. It means that the person saying that belongs to a different sect of society. Yeah, it may be awkward for however they operate. But as this computer culture grew, it's been really cool to see more and more younger and younger people. I'm pushing 50 years old, and every time I see someone in their early 20s come to BurbSec and I talk to them and they are absolutely nerding the heck out about some cryptographic something or other, I get so excited. I am like, oh my God, they're still out there. Cool. And they're finding us, and they're finding this place, and they're finding their people. They're coming to somewhere where they can go and be a nerd and be, quote, socially awkward. Of course, they're not now because they're socially appropriate for the situation that they're in. And to be themselves and to find other people who are like them and make friends and then meet up outside of BurbSec. Like that's got to go on that pile of things I did not expect, is for multiple people to find each other. I have multiple stories of people who have met their significant others through BurbSec. We've had one marriage through BurbSec. It shouldn't be crazy to me, but it is. Like, it
Oh,
makes sense when I say it out loud, and I'm like, no, this
it,
sounds normal. What the hell's wrong with you?
I mean, this sounds like normal, healthy community to me. The one that
Right.
surprised me the most coming to BurbSec over the years has been the number of people who straight say like, I'm not in security yet. I work parallel security. I'm
Me
developer.
too.
And they keep showing up. Like, why this one is like, because this is a really good meetup. This is like where you get to actually talk to people. And that never
Yeah.
happened in the other meetups that I helped run or any other tech. Like, you go to not picking on it, but the PHP meetup, and it's like, we're gonna deep dive on some really specific things in PHP and then go home.
Yeah.
Uh, Not stand around and like, we got to get out of this building because yeah, we're annoying the people that are running this office. Where we have a like navigator tap room, I never feel like we overwhelm them sometimes because we have so many people at the event, but I don't think we're annoying
Yeah.
them because we're spending money.
No, and I
We're
always
happy
check
with
in
that.
with them too. I always check in with them
We're
to
a
make
really good
sure
group, truly.
everything's cool. Yeah.
So shout out to
Uh,
Navigator Tap Room here in Chicago. Not an ad, not a paid sponsorship. But hey, man, this has been awesome. We're getting toward the end of time, and
already.
we have like 4 questions we ask every guest
hmm
as a standard part of our show to get to know you a little bit better and give you a chance to give some good advice out there. So we'll start with the first question. What is your favorite all-time command line security tool?
I'll try to get my answers short for you to stay on time, because you're going to get me going off. Favorite security command line tool? Oh, Responder. Um, and that's an offensive, that, what, that's given it a bad rap. Generally, it was created as an offensive security tool. For those who don't know, Responder, heck, go use it. Anytime anyone says a tool you don't know of, you should immediately go download it and use it in your environment. Maybe not in production, but go use it. Responder is a tool that sits on the network and it listens for questions from other computers and it answers those questions for them. And it does so in a not so it does so in an extremely friendly manner, but for nefarious purposes. So it listens for, say, DNS queries where other computers on the network are going, hey, I cannot find this file server. Does anyone know the IP address of it? And then Responder will go, oh, I do. It's my IP address, or whatever IP address you held. And then the remote server goes, cool, great. I'm trying to get this file off of it. And then Responder goes, oh, hang on. I need you to authenticate first so that I know you're who you say you are, because I'm very security minded. And then the other server goes, that's great. I'm so happy you're like that. And here are my credentials. And then Responder goes, thank you. Your credentials are valid. You can come in. And sometimes you can even like then serve a malicious file based on whatever that server is looking for. Um, and it works really, really, really well. And I'm giving you the short version of what Responder does because it's very robust. But that's generally, and it's the first thing I do. As a penetration tester, I get on the network, I fire up Responder, and I go do my other things, and I will leave Responder running for the entire, say, 40, 80-hour engagement. And it is just great for logging credentials and all kinds of information on the network. But as a defender, it's super useful for the same reason. Know that offenders are coming in and using this tool. You should also run it to see what it finds so that you can turn off all of the stuff that it is taking advantage of and make it so when a real attacker comes in, they're not going to be able to do anything.
uh, it's the classic. You have to attack your own stuff to understand how it's going to be attacked.
I can't
Uh,
believe we're still like having to argue that in 2025.
all right, next question. Let's drop it there. Uh,
Yeah.
so you've been a hiring manager across your career. Do you have a go-to favorite question you ask everybody?
Yeah, it's extremely long. The question's short. It's tell me in as much detail as you can possibly muster what happens between you deciding you're going to visit a website and that website being rendered inside of your browser. And that is like one of the most technical things I can possibly ask somebody. It was asked of me in like 2012, and I was like, oh no, oh no. And I've had candidates take 40 minutes to answer it. I've had candidates where, and those 40-minute ones, I've stopped them. I'm like, all right, that's enough, man. Because you can go all the way down to like, how do key switches in a keyboard work, right? How
Yeah.
does the USB protocol work? Like, we're not even talking about network protocols yet, right? We're not even talking about like, hey, did you know there's actually an invisible dot after the TLD in a domain name? What is that invisible dot? Where does that go? There's actually something higher than the TLD servers. What are they? What are TLD servers? How are those determined for a specific TLD? All the way down. You can see how this could be a multi-video YouTube series on just how do I website? So that's probably one of my favorite technical questions.
Regular listeners to the show are going to that sounds a little familiar. A guest from a few episodes ago had a similar question, and we ended up having a short conversation about Ben Eater and like the homemade computer kits and how he goes into great nerdy detail about like how keyboards work. He pulls out the oscilloscope and is like, "Here's how these signals look." So I love talking to people
Yeah,
about that stuff. All right,
yeah, yeah.
just take
All
time. We
right,
got to keep
rapid
going.
fire. We're gonna get going.
Yeah. Best advice, worst advice. Let's start with the best advice, and then I'm going to ask you what's the worst advice you hear out there. But what's the best advice you've heard maybe ever?
Assume breach. To put it to just give you a rapid fire answer, assume breach. I don't think that there's any better way to create both defense in depth, and also perform incident response than assume that you have been breached by a malicious entity. Whatever you're working on, whatever you're trying to investigate, whatever you're trying to build defenses around, assume they've been breached. Okay, I implemented this one barrier. Cool. Assume it's been breached. Now what? Okay, well, that means I have to put up a different barrier of this type. I also have to detect that the breach has happened. So I need to put in feelers here and there. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And then what? Well, then you assume that gets breached, and you just keep assuming breach until you get to the point where you're like, okay, if they got this far, I'm going to let them win. Well, the reality is you're talking risk acceptance. You go, probably nobody's going to get this far. It's not worth the amount of money we're spending or the amount of time we're costing people to protect this level of XYZ.
And
And so that's, yeah.
that makes sense because I have a lot of conversations with people about risk and their feelings on risk and zero trust. But yeah, it's once you get down to like we took care of the basics, we took care of it's really really hard to get here. Then you can start saying, all right, now we can start playing with like, are we okay with risk because this is so unlikely that anybody would have made it this far without doing everything we did to get to this stage. So that makes a ton of sense. So
Uh-huh,
what's
absolutely.
what's the worst advice you're hearing out there? What's the piece that makes you cringe?
Oh my God. The piece that makes me want to just go to prison. Um, the piece that gives me violent reactions. Somewhere between um, the people who yell, patch your shit, and the people who wear the shirt or the stickers that say "There's no patch for human stupidity." I think those two things are the two that just make me just like they absolutely broadcast how far bottom left you are on the or top left you are on the Dunning Kruger graph. Uh, um, Patch your shit is something that only works in the smallest of environments. Like Yes, you should absolutely be patching. You should have a patch cycling set up. You should be investigating for servers that have not been patched and why. But then, like in a large enough environment, and this, I'm not talking about like, oh, well, yeah, I guess you never worked for NASA. I'm talking about this is really common in many, many environments, especially in critical infrastructure. What do you do when you can't patch something? Um, what do you mean you can't patch something? Well, what do you do when it's like so it's running Windows 2000? There is no patch for this problem. Well, and they'll go, well, you got to get rid of Windows 2000. What if you can't? What do you mean you can't? Well, what if there's a piece of software that runs on this platform that will not run on even XP, let alone Windows 10, 11, now that 10 is dead, and that software is mission critical, and and then they'll go, oh well, what does it do? And, it maintains this customer database. So you migrate the customer database. Okay, well, migrating the customer database to a new piece of software is it's about a 3-year project, and it's going to cost $2.5 million. We've spec'd it out, and we are going to start doing it. But that means I've got 3 years of this vulnerable server. What else do I do? And I'm not going to keep going down that path. But yeah, the patch your shit people who just think that that's the end all be all answer. It's like, come on, guys, you have to do better than this. You're the problem. Like coming in and just shouting things through a door and then walking away is
Yep.
not security. And that's what everybody complains about. Oh, how do I get leadership to understand how important security is? Like, well, sticking your head in the door and yelling, patch your shit is probably not the way. Let's like start from reality and work through reality.
Makes
That's
sense.
that's my first piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely update your browsers and keep things up to date. Let's do that, please.
100%. Patch all the shit you can
Yeah.
and then start tackling the actual problem.
Every time I talk to anybody that works in operational technology, I've gotten to the point now of like, so how many XP boxes you still got running? And every single time, it's the answer is not zero. I've never talked
Yeah.
to an OT person that has gotten rid of Windows 95.
I mean, I will tell
Or
you,
XP.
because we haven't discussed where I work, not that anybody could go look that up. I'm dealing with Windows NT right now. With Windows NT servers that we cannot replace for extremely good reasons. What do? You know?
Well, you defend that. Get
Yeah.
those right controls in place and
Deeply. You
make
defend it
sure you
deeply,
protect it.
in depth.
All right,
Yeah.
this has been a long episode already, longer than most, but we still like I still like to give our guest the final say. Open the floor. Anything you want to promote, anything you want to tell people out in the world, floor is yours.
Uh, it's hard out there. Sorry, man. It's hard out there, and we know. I know how tough it is when you maybe are feel like you're the smartest person in your family, the smartest person in your friend group. You struggle to communicate in the way that other people do. You struggle to find someone that you feel is worth talking to and worth hanging out with because other people frustrate you because maybe they don't think the same things that you think are important or cool or whatever. Um, and I get that. I'd say probably everybody listening to this podcast gets that. Um, and uh, I want to say that the chances of you being so unique that there's nobody like you and nobody that you will ever click with is a statistical improbability. And there's got to be that group out there for you. And you shouldn't give up, and you should keep looking around and trying to find it, whether it's forums, whether it's discords, whether it's, God forbid, social media. But nothing beats in person. Try to find those people that you can physically see and touch and communicate with, because nothing's going to beat that. Nothing fills that gap. We are social people. We are social animals. It's an unfortunate truth. We really do need that face-to-face contact. And while you're out there doing that and still like struggling to find your people and where they are, be really conscious of making sure you are finding the right people. Um, Make sure you're not falling in with a group who supports you and agrees with everything you say, and then maybe convinces you to start buying some guns and maybe uh, teaching you how to make some bombs out of rice cookers. There's a lot of groups out there who are actively searching for the despondent ones of us, the ones of us who feel like we've been left aside, the ones of us who feel like we're being wasted, our intelligence is being wasted and our personalities are being wasted and we're being preyed upon out there. We're the people who are being radicalized and converted. And just, it's really shame to see on the news when you see somebody who takes a pot shot at the president or blows up a marathon, and they post all their background. You're like, wow, this was a really smart kid. I will guarantee that he was having trouble finding his place in the world. And it's really shame to see that go to waste because a bunch of extremely despicably evil people decided to take advantage of his very sad situation. So please don't become that person. If you feel you're becoming that person, reach out to me, man. We'll figure it out. Don't, I hate seeing it. I'm going to leave you on that note. Enjoy.
Oh man, well, we're not just leaving on that note. You are doing the work, the good work to make sure there is that place they can go.
That's all I'm trying to
Even if
do.
you're only slightly interested in information security, I encourage you to reach out to BurbSec. Find us in your community. If there's not one, there's probably a local meetup. And couldn't agree with you more. Get out and find your people. Face to
Yeah.
face, in person communication is what we're all about, and that's how we're supposed to be doing it.
At the worst case, our Discord's on burbsec.com. You could start your path there. Happy to have you.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Johnny, for doing this, man. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, man. This is great. It's been too long. It took too long to get me on here.